Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to look at the 1973 dystopian sci-fi film, Soylent Green. Please like and subscribe and let's begin. In the year 2022, the world faces food shortages due to overpopulation, pollution, and global warming. Detective Thorne wakes up from his sleep and turns the TV on. A commercial for Soylent Red, Soylent Yellow, and the new Soylent Green plays on the TV, a food made from the ocean's plankton. Thorne's roommate is Saul Roth, a former college professor and police analyst. He's going over some information he's dug up on a few of Thorne's cases. Thorne sits down to eat, but Roth won't eat that crap. He says when he was young, food was food. They have to charge batteries to power their apartment by riding a bike. Thorne is working the night shift and heads out, leaping over the poor and destitute that fill the apartments. A woman named Cheryl plays a video game given to her by a wealthy man named William Simonson. She leaves with Simonson's bodyguard Tab, who has her curfew pass. She's buying fresh fruit and vegetables, and some canned food which are in low supply and costs her $279. The man takes her inside as he promised her something special, some actual beef. Meanwhile, Simonson is in his apartment when a man named Gilbert comes in brandishing a crowbar. Gilbert plunges the crowbar into his skull, killing the man. Shortly after, Thorne enters the apartment as he's been tasked with the murder. He meets Tab and Cheryl, Simonson's concubine, also referred to as furniture. They walk to the living room where the body is still on the ground. Thorne asks where they were and Tab says they were out shopping. He tells Tab to write a statement of everything they did that day. Thorne enjoys some fresh, clean running water, as that's something only the elite get to enjoy. Cheryl blames herself for his death, but Tab tells her it wasn't her fault. Thorne questions Cheryl, asking some basic questions, and says he may need to see her again. Meanwhile, the sanitation team arrives to take the body. Thorne gets the statement from Tab and asks the sanitation team for a lift home, which they do in what looks to be a garbage truck. Thorne enters the apartment, bringing Saul a bunch of things he took from Simonson's apartment. Most importantly, Soylent Oceanographic Survey Report Volumes 1 and 2. Thorne meets with the chief detective and says he thinks Simonson was assassinated. Meanwhile, people fill the streets, filling jugs with their weekly allotment of water. Thorne is keeping an eye on Tab and heads into the building he just came out of. He goes to Tab's apartment and finds a woman named Martha inside, who says he isn't home. He finds nothing, but tells the woman when Tab gets home to let him know. Later that night, Thorne's walking and believes someone is following him. He arrives at Simonson's to speak to Cheryl and finds the apartment full of other girls. Thorne takes Cheryl to the bedroom and tells her Simonson was assassinated. He asks her more questions, and Simonson was involved in the Soylent Corporation along with the governor, and he had visited church prior to his death. Thorne finishes up with the furniture and heads to the church. Inside he finds a priest named Paul, who is one of the last people to see Simonson alive. Simonson confessed something that is eating the priest alive, but he just cannot say what it is. With nothing but a dead end, Thorne leaves. He speaks with his chief, who tells him they're closing the Simonson case. Thorne believes there's something fishy going on, as you don't just close a high-profile case like this. He claims the chief has been bought, and Thorne refuses to falsify any reports. We see the governor and one of his men, who informs him they tried resolving the case, but Thorne refuses to sign off on it. His man tells him he believes the priest told Thorne Simonson's confession, and the governor tells him to say no more and handle it. Tab is at the church and assassinates the priest with a gun. Thorne is on riot duty, and one of his fellow detectives tells him they're running out of Soylent Green and is afraid to give the announcement. Meanwhile, Gilbert is watching Thorne from the crowd. The police announce they're out of Soylent Green and the crowd goes nuts. Large trucks called scoops come in and start hauling people away. Gilbert pulls a gun and shoots, hitting a woman instead of Thorne. He tries running and Thorne goes after him, pushing his way through the crowd. Thorne catches him, throwing him to the ground. Gilbert shoots him in the leg but is crushed by one of the scoops. Back with Tab, who is returning to his apartment. However, Thorne is waiting for him and slugs him. Thorne wants to know who he works for, who's paying him, but Tab won't say a thing. He tells Tab if you send anyone else again, he'll come back and kill him. Meanwhile, Saul is bringing the volumes to the other books, as he and others like him are called, as he needs help. They discover Simonson learned of something that shook him to his core, and the corporation knew he wasn't reliable anymore. They need to prove what's going on before they can bring it to the Council of Nations. Consumed by what he's learned, Saul decides to get help at the government clinic. Thorne gets a note from Saul saying he's going home, and Thorne knows exactly what that means. Thorne rushes as Saul is being prepared. He enters the building demanding to see Saul, but he's too late. Before Saul passes, he tells Thorne what he knows about the Soylent Corporation and that Thorne needs to prove it. Thorn watches as bodies are placed on the sanitation trucks and jumps on one to find where they're going. He arrives at a waste disposal plant where the bodies are all being dumped. He goes inside the facility, sneaking around. Traversing deeper inside, he finds a belt feeding the bodies to a lower level. He comes across another belt carrying Soylent Green, and it all just clicks. 2 men see him and he runs for it. He manages to get on another sanitation truck and escape. Thorn makes it back and calls for the chief. He gets through and tells him he needs help. Some men start walking towards him and he shoots, with the men firing back. He's running to the church and Tab shoots him in the back. Thorn limps his way inside with Tab pursuing him. Tab searches the church, following a trail of blood. Thorn tackles him and the men struggle. Tab is about to shoot and Thorn stabs him in the stomach with a knife. The chief arrives and Thorn tells him you have to tell the people. He says tell them what? And Thorn says, the oceans are dying, the plankton is dying, and Soylent Green, it's made of people. Thorn is being carried off and he screams one last time, Soylent Green is people. I hope you enjoyed our little look at Soylent Green. If you could like the video and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. Thank you all for watching and take care.